Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of 3PL Live Sessions. This time on a Saturday, which is a little bit different for Michael and I. I'm here with Michael Sternberg, our co-host. Michael, can you kick it off for us and take a moment to explain why did a TMS provider go to Matt's?
Yeah, happy Saturday. I don't know if anyone's actually listening live. If you are, you're probably just as crazy as us. So thank you for hopping on. Um, obviously most of you that are listening know that we provide a TMS specifically for freight brokerages. So the obvious question is why the hell did 3PL Systems go to the Mid America Trucking Show? And so for us, it's really more of a continuing education thing, really understanding that side of the industry better than we do today. And our thought is that it will allow us to better build tools for our brokerage clients that will then allow them to serve their carriers better. And so, going out there was a big unknown. And I mean that from a purely like we have a lot to learn perspective. And I think I could say without hesitation that we learned a lot. So, Cam, do you want to go into a little bit about maybe some of the observations we had and some of the things we heard and saw while we were out there?
Sure, yeah. So while we were out there, a few of the things that we saw is the carrier side is really a family affair. So every single convention that I've been to has always been surrounded around the freight brokerage side. It's always been about our clients, the TMS that we build and provide is for freight brokers. And going to Matt's was a lot different. And the reason I feel is a lot different is that the kids were there, the wives were there, the husbands were there. It was a really, truly a family affair, and it was a lot bigger than anything that I've been to in regards to, the typical freight brokerage event like TIA and the other ones that we go to. And so that was a big eye opener for me. And it makes a lot of sense because if we think about it, freight brokerages, you're really just working in an office most of the time and you're going to the same place over and over. Whereas with the carrier side, it really is a family agreement almost
Mm,
because if you're driving trucks within our industry, you're going to be gone a lot from your family, and that's something everyone needs to be on board with when you're doing something like that. Because think about the impact it has for family relationships, friends relationships, all those types of things that maybe our side of the industry doesn't really take that into consideration, how much these guys really are sacrificing, driving these trucks on behalf of us, the consumers, throughout the nation.
yeah.
Another thing I'll just call out, it was cool seeing a few of our partners out there, Truck Stop, Trucker Tools, DAT. They were there. Um, yeah, Mike, what about you?
Yeah, I wanna piggyback real quick. So I think when we were like day one, I looked at the attendance, or like the registered attendees. I think it was like 59,500 people. Um our traditionally our biggest, most important conference is the TIA Capital Ideas Convention. How many people go to that, Cam? Few thousand, 4,000?
Yeah, 3 to 4 thousand.
And I don't think I've ever seen a kid, let alone a baby, in a stroller at the TIA Capital Ideas Conference. And I saw, oh, what, hundreds, right?
Yeah,
At least, right? And so it was very interesting. I also want to clue in on something that may not be the easiest or best for people in the brokerage space to hear, but I think it's something we need to say, because we hear that like, hey, brokers get this bad rap. Um, that's true. Carriers carriers are not fond of brokers. We heard it more than a few times. I'm not necessarily blaming brokers or our clients because I don't know enough to understand that, but there's certainly a communication gap and a misunderstanding between both parties where brokers are not held in the highest of accord by carriers. There's a really cool event, the Broker Carrier Summit. I think what's that guy's name, Cam? Dan Lindsay, who puts that
yeah,
on
yeah,
out in Kansas
yep.
City, Missouri. I don't think we're going to make it this year, but I'm sure we will in the future. Heard about what they're doing. Super cool to kind of bridge that gap between the carriers and brokers. So it's certainly not a new idea or anything novel that I'm saying, but it was really interesting to witness it firsthand. Just the little side comments, right? Like carriers would make randomly, like, oh, broker this or broker that, or What are the brokers doing, or what are people doing to stop brokers from committing fraud on the broker boards? And it just, I don't know what it is, but there is a clear rift between carriers and brokers, and the reality is they both need each other, right? We see it every day. All the interactions that are going on in our TMS, y'all need each other. So you guys need to learn how to play nice in the sandbox. It kind of tied into the episode that we did last week. So um, I hear these stories. It was just interesting to hear it firsthand. I hear it normally through the grapevine, or people ranting on LinkedIn about, broker this, broker that, carry this, carry that. So, anyways, Cam, do you want to talk a little bit about that? The uh, the FMCSA talk. I thought that was a really, really good talk that I think people would really want to hear about and benefit from hearing what they were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So the FMCSA, some of you may already know this, some of you may not. They're launching a new platform that's going to replace our current platform that we're all used to seeing and interacting with. And it was a really good conversation that they had at Matt's. What they talked about is just modernizing everything. As we all know, the current platform that's in place is extremely outdated. They're finally saying they're going to eliminate the MC number, so the MC number is going to go away.
How many years have they
Hopefully,
been
I've
saying
been
that? I don't mean to cut you off. How
forever,
many years have they been saying that?
very long time since I basically joined this industry.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, MC number is they're saying is finally going away in early 2025. They'll no longer have it as a data point available to the public, and it's no longer going to be assigned to new carriers, brokers, or anyone for that matter. And everything is going to be based on the DOT number going forward. And few of the other things that they're looking at on the FMCSA side is they're going to be eliminating all paper applications. And then one thing they did say that stood out, but they didn't provide who it is, and I'm pretty sure I know who it is, or we know who it is that they're going to be partnering with a provider for the verification process of the carriers. And that I can assume who it's going to be, but I'm not going to throw the name out there till it happens.
I,
But
I think most people would
it
make
was
the same
also
assumption.
interesting. Yeah. It was also interesting hearing all the questions that they had for the FMCSA. And in all honesty, as a developer and working on the software side, they have a timeline of early 2025. But based on the conversation that we saw, I honestly don't think they're going to hit that. Mike, I don't know what your assumption is there, but based on what was being shown and everything, it's a lofty
Yeah,
goal.
yeah. I'll take it from a non-technical lens, because that's the only lens that I have. Um, Even within private software companies like ours that we work for, that is incredibly agile because of the size of the company and because we don't have big money, kind of pulling the puppet strings. It's hard enough to get new products out, to revamp products, to kind of come to market quickly, and we do a damn good job at it. So expecting the government, just to be really frank, expecting the government to hit a timeline that's in a quick timeline, and to develop a product efficiently and effectively within that time frame, I think is almost impossible. Um, to be fair, there's like an asterisk on my statement, and I'm jaded, as are most people, when it comes to trusting our government to get things done in a timely manner. Not just the FMCSA, but any damn department. So no, I don't think. And that's the joke I made earlier, man, about the MC numbers, right? It's like, how long have they been talking about that?
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
been a
they can't even do that. So,
yeah,
anyways, at least here they recognize it's a problem. They do have a plan in place, right? So I don't want to be completely negative. Like, the plan's good.
yeah.
They know it's a problem.
Plan is good.
They are fixing it. It's just going to take work and it's going to take time. But I think the best part about what the talk we saw was how on board all of the carriers were. There were a lot of consultants, and there were a lot of insights that people were giving around how bad the fraud is. And that's nothing new as well. Everybody knows how bad the fraud is. But really hearing it directly from the carriers, because again, we only hear it directly from the brokers typically. Um, it's bad. It's really, really bad. And again, I won't name the person, the people as well, but I think if it is the people that we're thinking for the carrier verification and the principal place of business verification, they're going to do a damn good job.
Yeah, I agree with that. they're going to slow down the process in how they approve carriers is basically what I got, but they're going to be doing it in a way that is methodical and they have strategy behind it this time. And by eliminating all the paperwork and everything else and the different ways you can sign up to become a certified through FMCSA, I think that's going to help a lot. One of the questions that the audience member that a few of the audience members asked was around the load boards, which was interesting. How
Mm.
do they keep the load boards in check and allowing fraudulent carriers to go on them? And the FMCSA had a good response. If they fix their issue on their end, because the load boards do run off their data, then it should flow down and help the load boards in a big way. But they can't put any restrictions on the load boards themselves. So that was interesting to hear that the FMCSA can literally apply no restrictions on load boards at all. It really doesn't matter, from what I understand, based on that talk, if the load board accidentally lets fraudulent carriers on and double brokers and things like that. It really is up to you. If you're a freight broker, it's up to you to protect yourself. And the FMCSA is working towards a solution, but as of today, the best way is to ignore all that until it's done and work with third-party providers in the industry to improve on your safety and what you're doing on behalf of your shippers. Um, so
It's a
yeah,
really good point,
again,
man. It's a really, really good point. So many of the questions were, what are you, FMCSA, doing to help me? Instead of, what can I do to help myself, right? Because nobody's coming to save you from fraud. There are things that can help, but at the end of the day, it's up to you, right? Like, if I get approached by somebody on the street, like, it's up to me if I want to take out my wallet and give them any money or not, right? And I know that's like an
yeah,
oversimplified comparison, but ultimately, like, I hold my wallet. I can pull it out of my pocket or not, right? And so I think expecting anybody, especially the government, FMCSA, to protect you from this is probably the wrong mindset. Not just my 2 cents. I don't know. Take it for
yeah.
what it's worth.
One other thing I will say about Matt's is that the software presence wasn't significant. It was definitely more on the hardware side. A lot of companies providing customizations for the rigs themselves. And by the way, there were some
Really
absolutely
cool.
gorgeous rigs there and really cool rigs. But yeah, a lot of the companies that were providing third-party parts to customize these trucks and enhance these trucks or to improve on them, but wasn't a huge amount of software providers, at least from what I saw in the industry or at the event. From what I saw, Mike, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, even there were a few, right? There were a
Or a
few,
few?
but they weren't big boosts. They weren't pushing. Even like DAT, which is huge in our space, in the brokerage
Hmm.
space, they had a decent sized booth, but they were pushing it. Looked like just a fuel card, right? So,
Yeah,
like, I wouldn't even say that's like a software play, albeit there is a software and a platform behind it and all that. Like, I guess when it comes to that market, they're not really open to software. I shouldn't say open, but it's just not something that they're thinking about a lot. I think you get a lot of actual drivers at mats instead of like people that are in offices. So maybe, there's a different approach there. But I mean, what was that one booth, dude? Roadworks. That booth,
Roadworks,
Roadworks,
it's
the
huge.
size of their footprint was like half of the exhibit floor at TIA just for that one company, right? Like, it
It was huge.
was it was insane. And speaking of that, the size of the exhibit floor is what? I don't know, 8 to 10 times the TIA exhibit floor
Yeah, it was much
at
much
least.
larger.
It might
Yeah,
even be bigger. It was insane, but I don't know. I think maybe 5% of the exhibitors were software providers, maybe.
yeah. I think
And
that's a fair assumption.
yeah, and it brings up an interesting point, which is, well, there's two sides to the point. I don't know which one it is. Which one's the truth? It's either that market's underserved when it comes to software, or that market doesn't care about software, or doesn't care, quote unquote, doesn't care, right? So, and it could be a combination of both. It could be that they don't know what they don't know because nobody has served them correctly yet. It could be that they will never care. And they just want to, do their jobs and get it done with their hands. And that's totally fine. It was just starkly different from, again, our experience at TIA, let's say, which is what, 90%, 95% software, right? And so just so different. But I really think, and this is something you and I talked about this morning before we started and also after the conference, was no one even on the brokerage side is building tools that are serving the carriers. Let me back up. Not nobody, very few. Because like Trucker Tools is doing a hell of a job for the carriers and the brokers, right? DAT, obviously, Truck Stop, like there are people doing this. I can't say nobody. But I don't know. It's just not the same. Maybe brokers are more open to technology. I don't know, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, a lot of our interactions that we have with freight brokers are really focused on making them more efficient and how can we improve their process. And, looking at this through a different lens, which is like what I posted on LinkedIn, is my goal with going to Matt's was to look at the industry from a different side. Because for the last almost 13 years, I've looked at it through the broker lens, and I wanted to see what the other side had to say. And it just felt like there is a lot of room for improvement on how can a freight broker improve the lives of the carriers that they're working with. So we hear all the time on LinkedIn and in talks and in conversations that you need to build strong carrier relationships. One of those things that you can do, in my opinion, is build things that are going to improve their lives from your end as a freight broker. Make carriers want to work with you because you've made it so easy for them to work with you, and build maybe even analytical tools that can help them make decisions on the fly. So they're not just having to pull up their phone, I'm running a load from A to B, like actually apply strategy behind it. Where do they live? How can we get them home quicker than just the lane that they're going to choose to move? There's so many different things that you can look at, but I don't really hear that talked about a lot on our side of the industry. I hear about the relationship building and all of that, which is wonderful. I think that's extremely important. But what are we doing on the freight brokerage side to actually execute on things that are going to make the carriers' lives better? And I obviously know about like in yards, and some yards have showers and things like that. But it's just something to maybe think about deeper.
Yeah.
So
I think an important distinction, man, and this was blindingly evident to me at Matt's, was, the technology that you do see on the carrier side is typically reserved for the larger fleets, right? You don't get a lot as a small owner operator, or even as somebody who has like maybe just a few trucks. There's not a lot of software that is targeted towards those guys and making them more efficient. And so to your point, a lot of times you, owner operator, small fleet, may rely on the brokerage software. And if that brokerage software is typically either back office brokerage focused or front end shipper focused, then you're kind of left to you're hung out to dry. You might get like a digital rate con, right? And you might get like a macro point request or a Trucker Tools request to like turn on tracking on your phone, but you're not afforded a ton of technology as a small carrier. And that's most of what this industry is on the carrier side. There's not many big fleets, right? It's, the numbers better than I do. It's like 90% are 10 trucks or less or something like that, right?
yeah, it's a huge percentage.
And so one of the cool things, and you kind of alluded to it, but I just want to piggyback on it a little bit more, that you were talking about. I was like, man, how cool would it be if, like, as a broker, you could say, hey, carrier, where do you live? What time is your son's soccer game on Saturday? What time is your daughter's ballet recital on Thursday night? Let's plug that in. Let's see where our available freight is compared to your truck capacity. Let an algorithm kind of spin through that and say, hey, look, if you do this trip, this trip, this trip, you can have 3 loads this week. You'll get home for your daughter's ballet recital on Thursday. You'll be there for Tommy's soccer game on Saturday, and you'll be efficiently moving freight the whole time. That's a super cool idea. Now, we're far from that. We don't have that kind of algorithm yet, but it's not inconceivable. And the value that then a broker can provide to a carrier is tenfold what it is today. So I don't know. I thought that was a really cool idea that you had.
Yeah, it's taking into consideration the human behind the wheel.
Right.
It's taking into consideration that they have a life outside of moving freight. So it's just taking that a little bit further and caring about what's going on in their lives, right? So anyway, I really think that's it. Matt's was an incredible show. I'm glad we went. We learned a lot. We got to understand more of that side of the industry. We obviously understood a big part of it already, but we got to see a side of it that we never have seen before. So
right.
I'm really glad we went. Mike, do you want to wrap it up for us?
Yeah, let's see. Who's coming on Friday? Matt Silver next Friday?
Matt Silver, yeah.
Yeah, Matt Silver from Green Screens will be coming on. No, man, just look, if it, like I said at the beginning, if any of you guys are crazy enough to join us on a Saturday morning, we appreciate you. I've got a few things on the agenda today. Cam, I know you've got a couple things with the family. So I just hope if anybody is listening, enjoy your Saturday. If you're working, kudos to you. If you're not working, you're taking time to be with your loved ones and your friends, kudos to you as well. And other than that, man, let's go enjoy our weekend with our families, man. You got anything?
Nope, that's it. I appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And we both hope you have a wonderful weekend. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, everyone.